So, OpenAI, the company that cries poor every time someone mentions paying for training data, just offered to hand the United States government $42 billion worth of itself for free as a donation out of the pure goodness of their hearts. Yeah. Stick around, because the more you look at this deal, the weirder it gets. Here's the story. The Financial Times broke it this morning. Sam Altman has proposed donating 5% of OpenAI into a U.S. sovereign wealth fund. OpenAI's most recent valuation is $852 billion, which makes that 5% slice worth roughly $42.6 billion. And this was not some trial balloon somebody floated at a dinner party. CNBC, CNN, Forbes, and Bloomberg all confirmed the reporting within hours. The FT sources say the talks have been running quietly for more than a year, with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick in the room. And just for scale here, $42 billion is more than NASA's entire annual budget. The rockets, the telescopes, the Mars rovers, all of it. That is the size of the tip OpenAI is offering to leave on the table. A full year of secret meetings about handing the government a $42 billion present. Listen, when I spend a year negotiating the terms of a gift, we do not call that a gift anymore. We call that a settlement. Okay, so let's break down what is actually on the table, because the structure of this thing matters and parts of it are genuinely wild. This is not a loan, it is not a bailout, and it is not the government buying shares like a normal investor would. The proposal is that OpenAI donates, not sells, donates 5% of its equity into a sovereign wealth fund owned by the United States. And here is the part that got buried. The plan reportedly envisions every major American AI lab doing the same thing. Anthropic, Google, Meta, 5% each, all into one giant national pot. And the president has confirmed the conversations himself, saying the administration discussed concepts where, quote, pieces could be given to the American public. That phrase is doing a lot of heavy lifting, so let's talk about what it is supposed to mean, because there is a real model they keep pointing to. The model is the Alaska Permanent Fund. Alaska taxes its oil industry, invests the money in a giant state fund, and then mails every single resident a dividend check every year. In good years, that check has topped $2,000 per person. Free money, just for living there. It is real, and it works. And OpenAI has been laying this groundwork in public for months. Back in April, they published a policy paper called Industrial Policy for the Intelligence Age, pitching a public wealth fund where the returns, quote, could be distributed directly to citizens, letting regular people ride the upside of AI growth instead of just getting automated out of a job by it. And the timing is not random. Washington has been getting louder about cybersecurity holes in these models, and Chinese open source AI keeps getting almost as good as the American stuff while costing a fraction as much. The industry suddenly needs friends in DC, badly. AI profits mailed to your house like an Alaska oil check. I admit it, that sounds incredible, which is exactly why my scam detector is going off. Because in my experience, the better a billionaire's offer sounds, the more carefully you should read the receipt. Because here is what else has been happening while those friendly meetings were going on. And I promise you, once you line up the timeline, none of this reads like a coincidence anymore. Let's start with OpenAI's own crown jewel. OpenAI's next flagship model, GPT 5.6, is reportedly being held back. The White House asked OpenAI to limit its release to a small circle of government-approved partners because of how capable it is. Read that again. The government is now effectively deciding when America's biggest AI company gets to ship its product. Meanwhile, Anthropic, OpenAI's biggest rival, had export controls slapped on its most advanced models. Then this very week, right as the 5% story lands, those controls suddenly got lifted. The official explanation? It followed, quote, negotiations between the company and officials. Negotiations. There is that word again. The same week, Treasury Secretary Bessent was out defending the Intel stake as, quote, crucial for security, while NVIDIA sat waiting on a license to ship its next China chip. Every approval in this industry now runs through the same building. That is the leverage. Model held hostage. Negotiation happens. Model gets released. Look, I'm not saying it is a shakedown. I am just saying that if you drew it on a whiteboard, it would have the exact shape of one. And OpenAI is not even the first domino. Last year, the government took a 10% stake in Intel, worth $8.9 billion at the time. Before that deal, the president was publicly demanding Intel's CEO resign. After the deal, total silence, and now he brags the government's Intel stake has grown past $60 billion. Oh, and the fine print on that Intel deal is even better. The government's $8.9 billion was not new money. It mostly converted grants Intel had already been promised under the CHIPS Act into equity. They turned a subsidy into ownership. Congratulations on your grant. We own you now. Nvidia and AMD cut a different flavor of the same deal. They hand the US government 15% of their chip sales revenue from China. In exchange, they're allowed to keep selling certain chips to China at all. No stake, just a toll. A very large, very permanent toll. So here's the menu so far. Intel paid in equity. Nvidia and AMD pay in revenue. And now OpenAI is offering equity for itself and volunteering the entire AI industry along with it. You do not need a conspiracy corkboard for this one. You just need to notice that everybody who pays suddenly has a much, much easier time in Washington. Now let's talk about the problems with this beautiful arrangement, because there are at least 4 of them, and none of them are small print. They are the whole print. Problem 1. The government would be the referee and a shareholder at the same time. The same people writing AI safety rules would profit when AI companies win. Critics are already asking the obvious question: how exactly do you regulate an industry that you own a piece of? Historically, the answer is gently. Problem 2, a deal like this almost certainly needs Congress, and Congress is where bold ideas go to sit in a drawer for 6 years. Even the people pushing this admit that getting approval would complicate everything about it. So the timeline is somewhere between slow and geological. Problem 3. To half of Washington, 5% is adorable. Bernie Sanders introduced a bill in June, the American AI Sovereign Wealth Fund Act, that would hit AI companies with a 50% one-time tax on their stock. 50. Suddenly, Altman's 5% donation stops looking like generosity and starts looking like the friendly opening bid in a very expensive auction. And problem 4, the one nobody wants to say out loud, would you ever actually see a check? 5% of AI returns spread across 340 million Americans is not an Alaska oil dividend. Run the napkin math on a $42 billion stake, and even a great year lands closer to drinks money than rent money. The Alaska check works because Alaska has 700,000 people, not a third of a billion. And here is the governance question nobody has answered: who actually runs this fund? Alaska's has a board, statutes, and 50 years of case law. This one has a policy paper, 2 anonymous sources, and a vibe. That is not a retirement plan, that is a pitch deck. So when someone tells you that while you are going to share in the AI upside, ask the follow-up questions: how much, when, and who decides? Because right now the answers are unclear someday, and definitely not you. Now zoom all the way out with me for a second, because the individual deal is not even the biggest story here. The pattern is, step by step, the United States government is becoming a shareholder of Silicon Valley. 10% of Intel, a revenue cut from Nvidia and AMD. And now, maybe 5% of every frontier AI lab in the country, all parked in one national fund. Whatever label you put on that system, it is a genuinely new way of running American tech. And notice that both sides kind of like it for opposite reasons. One side gets leverage over the most powerful companies on earth, plus some very braggable wins. The other side gets to say the public finally owns a piece of the machine. And the companies? They get a government that makes money when they make money. Everybody at that table eats. And do not think this stays an American story. If Washington takes 5% of its AI champions, every government on earth takes notes. Brussels, Beijing, London, Riyadh. The price of building the future just became a piece of the company, everywhere, which leaves the one question nobody has answered. When the government owns 5% of AI, does it police AI like a cop or protect it like an investor? Because those are 2 different jobs. And history says it is very, very hard to do both at once. Somebody at that table is not going to get what they were promised. $42 billion says that question gets answered the comfortable way. Congress still has to move. The other AI labs still have to sign on, and you still have not seen a dime. I will be watching all of it. If you want the follow-up when this deal actually moves, you know exactly what to do. See you in the next one.